In 1066, a single battle forever changed the course of English history. This man would forever change England. William the Conqueror, the Duke of Normandy, crossed the English Channel to claim what he believed was his rightful throne. But who was William, and how did he become one of the most influential figures in medieval history? This is part 2 of our 3-part series about the English conquest in 1066. Today, this is part 2 as I said, and we are talking about William the Conqueror, and his importance to this timeline and the change in English history. The man who changed England forever. To understand William's rise to power, we have to go back to his roots in Normandy. Born in 1028, William was the illegitimate son of Duke Robert I of Normandy and Herleva, a tanner's daughter. Because of this, he was often referred to as William the Bastard. Despite his humble beginnings, young William would grow up to be a cunning leader and a formidable warrior. At just 8 years old, William became Duke of Normandy after his father's untimely death. As a descendant of Rollo, he was Duke of Normandy, known as William II. It was a dangerous position for a child to hold. Noblemen plotted against him, and William faced numerous assassination attempts. However, with the help of loyal guardians and allies, he managed to survive these tumultuous years and become a man that was to be reckoned with. By his late teens, William had established himself as a powerful duke. He was a talented military leader, skilled in the art of siege warfare. Over the next 2 decades, William consolidated his power in Normandy, defeating rebellious barons and securing his place as a ruler. He had quite the knack for siege warfare, as I mentioned, and he would go on to change the way that sieges were fought for the Normans. He revitalized the Norman military and crafted them into a power that was to be reckoned with, taking Viking heritage as well as many other types of warfare, combining them into a impressive military faction, and the way that he crafted them together was quite skilled. But William's ambitions extended beyond Normandy. In 1066, the death of Edward the Confessor, the King of England at the time, left a power vacuum. William claimed that Edward had promised him the English throne. However, the crown had been given to Harold Godwinson, a name you might recognize from last week's episode. He was a powerful English noble at this time, and he would, in his own right, be a king to reckon with. As you can see here, he went from Normandy, and you can see on the left, England after the Norman conquest, what would be held as Englnd. And on the right, you can see some of the very important battles that were fought during this time period and the dates that correlate along with them. If you want to pause the video here and take a look at these dates, I would highly recommend you do so. William saw this giving of the crown as a betrayal. He began gathering an invasion force, preparing to assert his claim by force. His army was a mix of Norman knights, infantry, archers, and new types of archers. This was a formidable combination for this time, and the use of these new bows along with the Norman cavalry is really what would make him a force to be reckoned with and vitalized and revolutionized the Norman military. In September of 1066, William set sail with a fleet of over 600 ships and around 7,000 men. His goal? To meet Harold on the battlefield and take the crown of England by force. On October 14th, 1066, the two armies met at the Battle of Hastings, which we will go into detail next week. This battle raged for hours, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. But in a decisive moment, Harold was killed, and his forces, they began to scatter. William had won, and with that victory, he became William the Conqueror, King of England. That victory took a lot by surprise, with Harold Godwinson having just come off of a victory against Harold Hardrada and the death of that Viking king. The Viking Age was coming to a close, and here we have the Normans spurring into England from the south. And with that victory, like I said, we'll go into detail next week, He earned himself the English crown, much to the surprise of many of the nobles. And with that, on Christmas Day 1066, William was crowned King of England in Westminster Abbey, but his reign was far from a peaceful one. Rebellions erupted across the country, and William responded with brutal efficiency. One of William's key strategies for maintaining his new control over England and expanding the crown's power was the construction of castles. These stone fortresses became symbols of Norman power. If you want to see a symbol of Norman power, all you have to do is look at the countryside of Wales and England, because many of these fortresses still stand today. Over time, hundreds of castles were built, including the famous Tower of London. To further consolidate his rule, William commissioned the Domesday Book in 1085. This extensive survey of England's landholdings was one of the most ambitious and administrative projects of the medieval era. It gave William detailed knowledge of his kingdom's wealth, resources, and holdings. He knew exactly who held how much and where, and this book was very important for the consolidation of the crown's power and the shifting of power in England in the medieval era. William's reign wasn't without personal tragedy. In 1083, his beloved wife, Matilda, died, and in his later years, William became more ruthless, often clashing with his own sons over the future of his now new empire. Many believe that the iron-handed rule that would come after 1083 and the way that he fought with his sons was in part due to the loss of his loved wife, Matilda, and we see that with the way he dealt with things, and whether or not that had to do with Matilda is up to debate, but there certainly was a shift in his behavior. William the Conqueror then died in 1087, so just 4 years later, after suffering injuries from a riding accident. He was buried in Normandy, but his legacy lived on in England. He transformed the country politically, socially, and militarily, laying the foundations for what would eventually become one of the most powerful nations in the world. He is also part of the reason that we see an impact of the French language on the English language, and the reason that the English nobles at the time began speaking French in court. He changed a lot of the way things were done, logistically, economically, and of course militarily, bringing that Norman military into English rule and setting up those castles that England is honestly quite famous for. He was buried at the Abbey of Saint-Antoine in Caen, Normandy, pictured here. And even today, William's influence is still felt, from the English language to the castles that dot the landscape, as pictured here, the Tower of London. He was more than just a conqueror, as his name states. He was a nation builder. Join me next week as we discuss the pivotal battle of Hastings in depth. That battle won him the crown and helped allow him to do these changes in England. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this brief, quick, deep dive into William the Conqueror and who he was. If you enjoyed this video and you want to learn more about the figures who shaped history, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. My plan for the rest of October goes as following. We will end our short little mini-series about 1066 with the Battle of Hastings next week, where we will go deep into depth about how that battle took place and the importance it was to William. After that, the following week, we're going to be talking about the Hungarian Revolution of 1956, and then to round out October, we will be talking about Martin Luther and his 95 Theses. So, if any of those things sound interesting to you, definitely hit that subscribe button and stick around for your weekly dose of history. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I am Jarlbear for the History Armada, and I will see you in our next episode. Thank you so much for watching.